Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Hope for the Soul podcast. I am Trent Smith, and with me today is my dad, Kent Smith. If you're watching this today on Facebook, YouTube, or our website, conroechurch.live, we want to thank you for watching. But I would also encourage you to subscribe to the Hope for the Soul podcast on Apple Podcast or Spotify or Google Podcast or wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. You can find Hope for the Soul. Our goal here is to deliver weekly content that will help you get closer to Jesus. We want to give hope to everyone who listens. So once again, thanks for listening to Hope for the Soul today. What's up, Dad?
Like, follow, share, subscribe.
Please share. That would greatly help us. And then if you could rate this podcast on whatever platform you are listening on, that would help us tremendously. We're glad you're here, everyone.
Welcome, everybody. We need to take care of a little personal house cleaning here.
What's that?
Yesterday, you made a comment to me that we had a lot of things to do, and we don't have time to be fooling with the project that I'm working on like I'm working on.
I sure did.
I just wanted to publicly tell you that you really should be helping me with that project, and we could have finished it already.
Well, you know, it's all good. Dad's selling his house, and he's doing a lot of work on it. Well, I texted him yesterday. First, I set him up with some help, and he didn't appreciate my help because he wants me there helping him. And so we've been going back and forth about that for the past couple of days. But we want to talk to you today about the power of decisions, the decision-making process. Talk to us, Dad.
Especially when we make decisions, making them from an ethical perspective. It's no secret, I'm a pastor. You're a pastor. Put us both together, and you may get a whole pastor out of both of us.
Yep.
The jury's out. But in my years of service to others in ministry, I have
Pull your mic a little closer, Dad.
found myself participating in many, many decisions, of course, of my own, but also being a coach and a participant in the decisions of other people. And this process of coaching others and even observing myself has created within me a curiosity of decision processes, and it has caused me to wonder why people make some decisions, how they make them, and what is the basis for which they choose to make a decision, then which leads me then to this whole thought of how to make a correct decision and how to make an ethical decision, because a decision, it might not be some decisions we make may not be a right or wrong issue, but I think if you drill down deeper in some of the decisions we make, it's not is this right or is this wrong, but you have presented to you the possibility of this is kind of right and this is kind of right, but which one is the real right? And so I've found many times that it's really easy to make a decision when it benefits me. And so I don't have to worry as much about whom else it might negatively affect.
In fact, you may have had it right the first time.
What a Freudian slip. Some of our decisions infect others.
Yeah, they sure do.
That is incredible. So I think it's important that we understand that our decisions that we make, we have to discover, establish what is right and real for us, and then understanding that some of our decisions, when we're presented with maybe 2 rights or 3 rights, which is the correct right? And so that's kind of my thought process right now. I'm going to throw another book out there for you. Anything Andy Andrews writes. It's a simple book that even the more basic, less academic readers can read. They're motivational, but anything Andy Andrews writes. And he wrote a book way back, I think, 2005, 2008, and it was known as the Butterfly Effect, which he wrote of a principle that was actually put forth by a meteorologist, a weather prognosticator, a weather forecaster by the name of Edward Lorenz, who put forth this thought. He had this deal called a chaos theory, and I don't know if I have a personal chaos theory, but I do know that I've had personal chaos.
Yeah.
But Lorenz in his chaos theory said that small actions in one place create great effect in other places. And the whole concept that he presented was a butterfly flaps its wings in Brazil, and you get a hurricane on the coast of Texas. And while that might be a bit more drastic than because I know butterflies flap their wing every day, and we don't have hurricanes in Texas every day, I think the principle of what he was presenting was incredible. And then, of course, the scientific community didn't appreciate, kind of laughed him off the stage until 30 years later, when another group of psychologists came in and they brought this thing back, and they introduced it not as a theory, but rather as a law, and that law was a law called the sensitive dependence upon initial conditions. In other words, conditions today are directly in accordance to things that have taken place in a previous moment, whether it was a previous week, month, year, or time.
So small moves today in our life could turn into huge moves or great momentum or maybe great failure in our future.
Oh, absolutely. And it seems like that it can be as casual as going out with the wrong person as a young adult. It can be as casual as just taking a time of fellowship with the wrong person. It can be as casual as finding yourself in a position to where you're embarrassed to say what you've been doing, so you just share a little what we call those white lies. And before long, the snowball effect of that little small thing, even though I found in life that a lot of time the things that we try to evade responsibility for are really not wrong things. But we just we are in a place where that we maybe wish that people thought a little bit different of us, so we create a scenario or a facade or an image, and we begin to build this thing. We build a straw man that's ourselves. And as we get this thing built, then we have to support something that can't support itself.
Right.
And so people...
You mentioned young adults, and we have a lot of young adults that listen to the podcast. So I think, what could you say right now to a young adult about the power of their decision? I know something that you've always told me, and I've heard you preach it and teach it to so many people, is that we make decisions, and then our decisions later make us.
Well, that's exactly true. We have to... the reality of life is this, is that we own our decisions.
So.
And conversely, if we own the decisions, then the consequences of those decisions we also own. Therefore, the converse of the fact is we own our decisions, we make our decisions, and then our decisions, conversely, they own us, or we've made some decisions that have owned us.
They help shape the life for the good or the bad that we live later.
You make a wrong decision and enter into a marriage that's bad, that's going to own you. You make a wrong decision and there's a baby involved, and that's going to own you not for a year, 2 years, 20 years. That's going to own you for a lifetime.
Right.
And so we own our decisions, and conversely, our decisions that they make us or they own us. This is an absolute law of life. And then when you realize that decisions are choices that we make, and we make them after considering other alternatives, and literally we do. We decide if we're going to do A or B. On every aspect of life, we consider A, we consider B, and it may be that A's got such a pull on us we don't really consider B. But many times it's not that we necessarily didn't consider B. We considered A, and then we considered to not consider B.
Right, that's right.
So we chose to not think about B. So in other words, we chose to ignore. We ignore voices in our life. We ignore training in our life. We ignore basic matters of ethics and Christian living. We ignore this because we're choosing something else. And so that choice again is, you're not choosing the good over the bad. You're choosing one decision by choosing to not consider the right of the other decision.
Me and you talk to a lot of people, and they say, well, I had no other decision to make. Well, the reality is you always have another decision.
Oh, yeah.
We are in control of our decisions.
And you have to learn that a decision cannot be, there should never be in your conversations, I have to make a decision. What you should be thinking is, it's not just a decision, but it is a right decision, a ethical decision, a moral decision. And then when you really understand that every decision has got to be an ethical one. Every decision has got to be a morally right decision. And morally, we're not just talking, physical or sexual things. We're talking what is right with this issue. And if you can look at something and ask yourself the question, what is morally right and what is morally wrong in this issue? Probably it's very easy for us to ignore. Our flesh wants to ignore the morally wrong because that's appealing. But we have to define what is right, what is wrong, what is morally right, was morally wrong.
Talk about impulsive decisions.
Oh.
I think so many times, for instance, yesterday, my wife and I, Kayla and I, we're trying to make some decisions in our finances. And we have 2 cars, 2 car payments. I hate having 2 car payments. And so I'm really wanting to sell my truck. And yesterday we were here at the office and we worked. And then I told her, well, we were sitting down and we were talking, trying to figure out what we're going to do. And we said, let's go get the truck appraised. And then we'll make a decision the next 7 days. Well, so we just got up and left. We were very impulsive. And then on the way to get my truck appraised, I said, we can't do this right now. And I got to thinking, because for the next, really between now and July, every weekend or every week at least one day, I'm traveling for an event or conference or something, or youth camp, all this. And we're going to need 2 cars. And so I said, if we do this, we're making an impulsive decision, because if I get an appraisal, the appraisal is only good for 7 days. And then if I hurry and make that decision based off of I have 7 days to make this, then for the next 30 or 31 days, I'm in a bind. And I think so many times, if we're not careful, we allow the things we want to override wise decision-making abilities. And I think we need to really, a double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. And you can't make good decisions when you're impulsive. An impulsive decision will always lead to a double-minded person. And I think I just wrote that down when you were talking, so I'm sorry to steal it from you. But since we're talking about decisions, impulsive decisions are rarely good decisions.
If you're out there listening to us, well, by the way, big guy, you had to have that fancy ride. You're listening to us, or you're watching us today, and you're dealing with the consequences of the impulse of that. I sure would look good.
Yeah, that's the truth.
In this truck or in this car, it would bring great benefit to me. And while you might look good when you pull up somewhere, all of those hours that you sweat out that payment, you sweat out that extra insurance payment, and you regret making the decision because when you're by yourself, the ego's not working too good.
That's right. That's right. And so I've just shared with you a personal deal, those of you who are listening. But the reality is we have all made decisions like this.
Here, if you are looking for resources, and you're a reader, buy any book by Henry Cloud. Any book by Henry Cloud, or just if you don't have time to read, you just go to your Google
audiobook,
or even YouTube, and do anything Henry Cloud. Dr. Cloud will accept royalties at any point.
I'm sure he will.
But he made this comment on his blog just a few days ago. He says this: I am in control of my choices. And we need to realize that we are in control of our choices no matter how we feel.
That's good.
We have to learn to separate our decisions from our emotions, because your emotions will fail you every time. I was talking to a young man one time. He'd been misbehaving, and I encouraged him to straighten his ways up a little bit. He says, but you don't understand when that feeling comes upon me. And if you're basing your life decisions upon that feeling that comes upon you,
feelings will always lead you astray.
You're fixing to wander yourself right off the cliff, because you are in control of your choices, and you've got to realize that you should make right choices no matter how that you feel. Separate your emotions from your brain.
We are all born with the ability to make good decisions.
Absolutely. Our flesh doesn't want to do it. Our ego doesn't want to do it. If you're a man out there and you got this major big ego, and we all do, those parts of our physiological and psychological makeup, we don't want to make the decisions that don't appeal to what makes us feel really good. Dr. Cloud also he writes about character and about integrity. And I wanted to share a couple of definitions with you as well. And first off, when he talks about character, he uses these terms that character is the ability to meet the demands of one's reality. Character is the ability to meet the demands of the reality. Where you're sitting right now, your job, your relationships, your family, where you're sitting right now, that is your reality. If you filed bankruptcy last week, that is your reality. If you've got $1 million in your checking account, that is your reality.
That's pretty good reality.
Have you tithed to that $1 million? A little pastoral moment comes up on us here. But that is your reality. So whether you are in a good moment or bad moment in life, indeed, that is your reality. And character is the ability to meet the demands of that reality. And so you have the ability to do what's right with that $1 million, or do what's right with that $1 million worth of debt.
That's right.
You have the ability. And what you choose to do with the realities that you're living in, that shows the world what your character is. because a character is the ability to deal right with your reality. And then if you want to begin to make decisions that are of a higher quality, that are of a higher ethical in content, or they're filled with integrity, Cloud goes on to say that integrity is the courage to meet the demands of your reality. So whatever your reality is, your character will put within you the ability to do right or wrong about it.
I love that word courage because, go ahead, I'm sorry.
But integrity takes courage to face it. Listen, my friend, it takes courage to pay your bills off.
Yep.
It takes courage to pay your tithe. Because I feel like that I can do more with my money than the whole amount, but it takes courage. Say, okay, God, I'm going to trust you with my money.
The easy decision is not always the courageous decision.
Absolutely.
You can take it away from money. The decision that you need to make with your family of how you're going to raise your children, that requires courage. This week we had a family meeting. It was the first one that we've had. And the first official one that I called. It was Monday night.
With all those little people?
With all those little people.
Those are my grand people, okay? They don't need to be corrected. They don't need to be spanked. They don't need to be fussed at. They need chocolate ice cream.
We made some courageous decisions this week, and we had a family meeting. And we sat down and we said, this is who we are. This is what we're doing. This is what we do. This is what we don't do. And we were dealing with some specific things.
I used to do that, and you didn't never respond well.
It seems like I turned out okay. The jury's still out, but I feel like I'm going in the right direction. And so that was a courageous thing. That it might not be courageous as far as the way that we often think of courage, Medal of Honor recipients or Nobel Peace Prize winners. It might not be that level of courage that I showed, but I said, I'm going to sit down and we're going to begin having conversations with our 3 kids, and we're going to shape their future. They might not like it, and I would rather do something else on my Monday night, but we're going to make the difficult decision to have this conversation now, because in 15 or 20 years, I don't want to be living with regrets because the actions of my children are such that bring embarrassment to me, all because I didn't have the courage when they were 6, 7, and 8 to have a tough conversation.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I want you to video that so I can be a participant in that thing. So if you take the ability to meet the demands of your reality, which is your character, and you add that to the courage to meet those same demands, as if you take the ability and the courage, add them together, and when you get the other side of the equation, you're going to find there is a word that's a part of you, which is called an ethic.
Wow. That's good.
You've got the ability. If you have the ability and you have the intent and you have the courage, then when you put them together, suddenly, wow, you are a person of ethic, and that is a tremendous challenge. It's a great place to be. Therefore, when you get to that place, you have to do exactly what you did with your family this week, and that is you have to decide, what are my core
values.
What right. are they? So when you start looking at core values, we are real people. We're real life people. And so if I have a core value, then I don't misabuse this phone right here.
That's right.
I don't call wrong people. I don't text wrong people. Yep. I don't message wrong people. I don't, whatever the myriad of other ways to do wrong with, is I have a core value that our past vice president, he was mocked and ridiculed when he first went into office.
You talk about Mike Pence.
Mike Pence, because he said he had a core value that he didn't spend time alone with with women that were not his wife. He was mocked and ridiculed. And it was as simple as taking a ride in his pickup with a reporter, and the press took this and they really made a lot of embarrassing accusations at him that he wouldn't have the integrity of the character to behave himself in that truck. But the bottom line is he had a core value that I don't do some things.
Right.
And it's very easy. It's very easy to not establish a core value, and you cross certain lines, and then when you say you establish what your core value is. So then when you're presented with the opportunity to cross whatever that line is, whatever it is, and you get to that point, if you cross that line, across that core value, then in all reality, you never had the core value.
Wow.
And so if it's an ethic, if you have decided my core values are in my life, and so these are what I don't do, and this is what I can do, and I'm going to live with this ethically, then if you cross those ethical lines, whatever you've established, you cross that line, you discover that you never really had a line.
Wow.
You never really had an ethic. And so there comes a point in life that when you know there's a core value in your life, and you don't cross that line, others become aware you don't cross that line, and people they gain great confidence in who and what you are, because they know that is a man, that is a leader, that is a person who doesn't cross certain ethical lines. Okay. Conversely, if you are one that crosses lines, people become very aware that you are a man who doesn't have, you're a woman, you are a young adult that doesn't have certain ethics in your life. And so others become very aware of what your core values are.
That there is or the lack thereof of core values. Because face it, a core value is just a driving principle. It's our core values are the stripes we put on our road of life, whether it's influenced by friends, by culture, or by the principles of God's word. The core values that we apply to our life keep us in line. They keep us in the lanes of life going the right direction.
So if you're going through life and you're saying, I have this value, I live with this principle, and that is what is verbally said. That's the image. That's the straw man that's built. But in all reality, people watch you and they see that you're not necessarily living up to that straw man. They know. And so when push comes to shove, when the moment for trust is there,
we've got 1 minute,
is called upon, then you understand that you don't really have an ethic. So let me just wrap. If I've got 1 minute left, let me simply say every ethic, every core value, every moral decision, all should point back to a singular thing. And Jesus, he established for each of us an absolute core value that is impeccable. It influences psychologists. It influences every aspect of moral type living and establishment of morality. And it's simply this, that we should do unto others as we would have them do to ourselves. If you want to know how to make a right decision, do unto others as you would have them do unto yourself. If you feel bad about the effects of someone else's decisions, then you've got to realize that if you found offense in that, you found pain in that, then you've got to realize that you're going to make decisions that's going to cause pain for other people. So you've got to always think about, how can I not affect that third party person negatively? I want to do unto others as I would have them do unto me.
Awesome. So good, Dad. Thank you all for listening. We hope you join us next week for another episode of the Hope for the Soul podcast. As always, subscribe, rate, review, and most importantly, share this podcast with other